I actually went to art school. So like I went to art school and kind of like fell into customer service because I was like, art school's all cute and all, but don't really want to do anything with that when I was done with it, right? Hello, welcome to another episode of Fail with Fire. I am your podcast host, Phoenix Ha. I am the CEO of AdBeacon, my favorite first party data and attribution platform, also optimization platform. Today, we have an incredible guest. And, as we have this podcast and the premise of it is speaking to failures and how they ignite fires to incredible moments, there's no other fiery lady that I can think of that's perfect for today other than Jess Cervellon. So Jess, welcome to the pod.
Thanks, Phoenix. Also, thanks for pronouncing my last name correctly. Love that.
I'm trying to make up for all the other ones I butchered, like Chase Mohseni. I was saying Mohensi the entire episode.
I would say Mohensi too, actually. So I'm glad you called that out because I love it.
At the very end, he's like, yeah, so, my name is Mohseni. And I was like, excuse me. And like an hour in. But anyway, so I always like to start off with my personal experience of how I met Jess, which is actually because I was a guest on her podcast with Zoe, and it's called Oopsie Podcast. So plug to Oopsie Podcast. I had an incredible time. Honestly, it was the first time I was able to have a candid conversation with two women in the space, or just anyone in the space, about what it's like to be a female in the space. Everyone asks that question. I always dodge and weave it because unless it's a qualified audience, why even engage? And it was an incredible conversation. Thank you for nurturing and fostering that. And I think a lot of people would benefit from it. But for the official announcement of who Jess is, a little bio, Jess Cervellon is the VP of Customer Experience at Feastables. If anyone knows Mr. Beast, Feastables, and a seasoned B2B and B2C customer experience consultant. You have over 15 years of experience, which no big deal. Fostering long-term loyalty and optimizing customer interactions, which I think we really need to focus on. In 2023 and beyond, collaborating with diverse organizations in e-commerce, retail, healthcare, financial services, technology. You have a crazy track record, and I had the honor of just getting to know you. But this is a bio, girl.
I know. And I think that bio is going to age me. So for the audience, don't try to age me. It's the Botox. You'll never guess it.
The Botox. I'm here for it. I'm like getting married. I'm like, wait, is Botox the thing I need? Oh, sorry. But anyway,
need to make that appointment for you.
Well, anyway, Jess, we always love to start it off here. If we were at a barbecue and I'm just being out flipping burgers as I do, what would someone, let's just say your mom or your significant other. Can you hear my dog? You can't hear my dog? Okay, we'll start it. Ready? If we were at a barbecue and I hadn't met you before and someone pulls me, let's just say your mom or your significant other, somebody who's like 10 degrees separated from what we do, how would they introduce you? What would they tell me you do for work?
So I'm going to use my mom's introduction because my mom was my proudest person of me and my advocate. And she used to introduce me like this. She'd be like, Jess, that's girl. And it's exactly where I get this like shake thing, like that's girl. So if my mom were to introduce me, the first thing she would be like, that's my girl, super proud of her. Jess works in like with customers in the consumer space, but it's not just about customer experience and support or success. Really, what Jess does, I don't know why I'm talking as if I'm like channeling my mom right now. But one, not just what Jess does. She's a caring individual. She's an empathetic leader. She really cares about like what the other person is doing and how to mentor and that individual as well as organizations. That's what I do. That is a customer experience professional. I am your big sister, your mom, your auntie. I'm here in the space to give you a big hug and tell you, listen, you better take care of your customers.
Get them auntie vibes. I'm here for the auntie vibes. As a Chinese woman with lots of aunties, auntie vibes are here. But also I think what's cool too is both you and Zoe are the first people in the space that I've actually gotten to know that are in CX. So customer experience, another acronym we throw out. We live in the world of acronyms. But whenever I hear CX, I think of the headset. Hi, ma'am. Yes, I know you need a return. Yeah. And then getting yelled at. But you take it to the strategy and execution level, thinking outside the box. That's huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Well, I mean, going back to not to be like, oh, my bio, whatever. But going back to my bio, like I've been in this space for 15 years, right? Like and to be honest with you, 15 years is an estimate. I don't even know how long I've been in this space because I've been in some form of customer experience, customer success. I actually went to art school. So like I went to art school and kind of like fell into customer service because I was like, art school's all cute and all, but don't really want to do anything with that when I was done with it, right? So at the time, I was like working at a bank. I like was a teller. Then I was a personal banker. Fun fact, I studied to get like my Series 7 license. Didn't do it. But this is the type of person that I've been since graduated college. So it's like working in these like service oriented positions. And then, besides that kind of like retail type of banking, I then moved into like startups, but I wasn't just in support. Like I've worked in customer success, like relationship building. So, and we'll get into this because it has to actually do with my my story. But really, what I'm trying to hone in on for the D2C industry, and really take customer experience to the next level, is it's not about support. It's not even just about retention marketing. It is literally about it is literally about relationship building. That's bottom line through and through, right? Like, so, I'm taking all of my customer success principles and I'm applying that to the e-com world. And like, yeah, you might have this one customer who might buy this bottle, right? But then like, is that customer continuously coming back? Like, how are you getting like information about like their preferences, their demographics, like whatever, and how are you selling to them? How are you building a relationship with them? And I literally look at customer experience again, not as support, as kind of like that relationship building. But like if you're a customer success professional, you would go in and you would talk to your client about, hey, here's our quarterly business review. Here's what you spent. Here's what you're doing here. Here's what we're going to go do next, right? So how do you package that customer success moment into little moments in interactions with your customers who buy your one product? And then how do you also, lastly, I'm also a user experience girl too. Like I come from tech. So I give a shit about the website. I give a shit about the comms that you're emailing that customer on, because it all has to be perfect in order for that user journey to be perfect.
I feel like CX is like your blind spot. It's the thing that you absolutely need to be aware of, because if you weren't aware of it, you will crash and die.
Yeah.
It's so easy to forget about because you can't see it all the time.
Right.
And it's like that trick up your sleeve that you're like, haha, this is actually what sets you apart from a really great brand lifetime value wise. So the reason why I'm thinking, well, as you're speaking to all these things, I'm thinking about all the brands I've worked with in the past, all of my experience, and going, oh, if we had a Jess, things would have gotten a lot better. But like K-Swiss, for example, I worked with their customer service team. I walked through the building and I saw the customer service team. I knew and they didn't have someone like yourself to really nurture that. They took it time by time. And they took it step by step. If anyone hears my dog in the background, I'm not even going to mute myself at this point. But, it's a very tough conversation if you don't understand it. But if you do understand it, it unlocks so much opportunity. So that being said, I kind of want to walk us through, you said it kind of leads up to your story. Can you kind of tell me a little bit about your failure to fire moment? Because the whole premise of this podcast is to highlight the hard times, not the good times, the hard times, and how they led to potential good times down the road.
Yeah. So, I mean, listen, I think like my failure is I'm not going to be able to tell you a story about like, oh, I started a business and then it failed. Like, yeah, I've had those moments, but like, I don't think that's value of like who I am and like what I like put every ounce of my being into. Right. So, I explained the story about like, I went to art school. I graduated from art school. I wanted nothing to do with art school. And then I continued on to, doing, banking, and I worked in offices, and I did this and I did that and I did all these other things. And then like, I'm giving the TLDR of my career. Right. And then for a long time, I worked in the travel industry, which is really interesting. I was like a corporate travel agent, and I was like, listen, bitch was doing it. Okay. She was turning a 45K salary into almost 200K a year because it was so primarily like commission based. And it's not about like, it's crazy. It's a crazy industry, but like,
Would you like an upgrade? You would love an upgrade.
you would fucking love an upgrade.
Having the hatch campaign in the sky because the bubbles hit different.
Yeah. I mean, it's a different type of sales, but it's a relationship building sales, right? So anyway, so going from this position where I was like making like a bunch of money, I was in sales, I was doing all this stuff. I decided to take a risk to get reward. I actually left this very cushy job that I was very good at. I was like getting President's Club, like all this stuff, and started my first ever startup. And I, walked into the startup, and the startup was like related to travel, but also expense. So it's like fintech, right? Or travel tech, whichever code word you want to use today. So I worked at this startup, and things were good. Things were rolling. Things were jamming. There was like a couple of like ebbs and flows. Like there were definitely times where I was like, I thought I was like better than this for some reason. Like I had this like egotistical moment. I don't know. And I would like always go and like apply for all these jobs, do all this other stuff. And I'm like, I'm going to leave this startup. Like I'll get treated so bad. Oh, bitch, you were not getting treated bad. Okay. You were fine. You get equity, you get a salary, you were fine. Okay. But listen, the reason I'm saying these things is because, so, I worked there for like, it was like a year and a half, almost 2 years. Right. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, here's my chance. I'm going to get out of the travel industry. I don't know why I'm in this accent, but I think this accent.
I was like not knowing where we're going with this, but I was like, did I change the channel?
Anyway, I was like, this is my chance. I'm going to get out of the travel industry. But it wasn't even about like getting out of the travel industry. It was like, I thought it was like better than the job. Right. So then I applied for a new job. I moved across country. I worked at this startup. And as soon as I walked in the door, I was like, oh man, this isn't where I want to be. This isn't what I want to do. Like, this isn't like my old job. Like, I hate it here. And then immediately I started being like, I don't like this. I'm better than this. I have something else to do, And then, I was at that position for 6 months. I was always chasing the grass is greener. The grass is greener somewhere else, another startup, right? And then I was at that position for about 6 months, and I went to another startup, and it was in health tech, right? And to be fair, I got a little bamboozled at this job. It was like one thing on the outside, and they were like, yeah, we're this technology. We're going to do these dope things. And then I started, and I like peeled back the onion internally, and I was like, you can't do that. You can do these things. Or like, then they pivoted the company. But the reason I'm like bringing up all these stories. So then like that company ended up they weren't failing necessarily, but like I ended up leaving them again. And then I ended up going to like another startup. It was like this series of like, I'm better than this, and I can go to this and do these things without actually watering my fucking grass where I was standing. Right. And I mean, and listen, like Feastables is actually my fifth startup. So I'm not going to go into like the full story of it all. Okay. Like Feastables, I was employee 4. There were like the same frustrations, the same scaling frustrations. We can dive deeper into that. And I was finding myself having this like attitude towards like scaling, like I'm better than this. Oh, I can go do something else. Like, let me go jump into it and something else. But instead of actually going and leaving this time, I sat there, and I'm obviously at Feastables today, and I've stayed there, and I've like moved on from this thinking that like just because you think the grass is greener somewhere else, it's never fucking as green as you think. And sometimes when you like, and this is startups, this is just startup mentality. Sometimes shit gets fucking hard. It gets hard. And sometimes you got to sit there and you got to go through the trenches with your team to get to the other side of it. And when you get to the other side of it, you got to do it again. That's what scaling is. That's what you have to constantly do. And, the reason I'm bringing up this story is because it's not necessarily that I failed, but I feel like I failed myself in my career, because had I stayed at some of these companies and not just constantly been chasing the grass is greener elsewhere, I might be in different places. I might be doing something different, but I wish that I just would have watered my grass a little bit more, because I feel like I would have learned things a little bit quicker than constantly chasing this other dream. And, to bite myself in the ass, that travel tech startup that I was talking about after I left was actually acquired. Bitch could have had her bag, had more in her bag. I had my bag, but I could have had more in my bag.
Ugh. You touched on so many different things that are really essential to anyone listening. There's this, we were talking offline, and you're like, I'm off Twitter because it gives me anxiety and so many other words. And I went, yeah, I understand that. And then I also understand this mindset too of every opportunity. You hear startup, right? I'll start there. You hear startup and you hear money. Because when you hear startup, you hear Silicon Valley, you hear all these great things, and you're like, not all startups are made equal. So maybe if I hop onto this one, it'll be better. I should be treated this way. I should. And it's almost like an I. And that's why it's important. It's like this give versus receive balance. Because very similar to yourself, I got this very bitter mentality, and not saying you're bitter. Maybe you were in that moment. I was definitely bitter. But you start to go, I should be treated this way. I should be paid this. Back to Chase Moseni, Chase had a really great equation as to how much money you should be asking depending on your output and depending on how it is a multiplier for a business. And it's the same thing for us. We don't do a gut check for ourselves and go, are we, what? Let me dial it back. This is the essential thing I think we should take from it. Do you have employee mentality or do you have business owner mentality?
I think I have a little bit of both, but I also think it's because I'm in a leadership position. So it's I have to take care of people I didn't say I have to take care of, this is auntie vibes again, but I just have I have a little bit of both. I think very much okay, I this is my business and I care about the success of this business. But then at the same time, I also really very care about the employees and we can go into a story on this, but I care about the success of my team and my direct report, because I don't want them to make the same mistakes as me.
Absolutely. I mean, you have the benefit of seeing things from both sides, but what I mean by that too, as well, I'm glad you answered that, but it also comes back to, I think that's when your mentality shifts. You said something beautiful, you didn't water your own grass. And owner mentality is making sure everybody's mouths are fed and that we're moving in the right direction, right? You don't want to lay people off, but in order for you not to lay people off, sometimes you have to lay someone off, right? You have to eliminate the few to help the masses. You have to make these awful decisions. And then you also have the employee mentality where you're thinking, I really want to hyper silo what my work is and be the best that it can be. And then you get angry at the CEO or maybe the higher up and going, why do you not fucking care about these things? These things are so important. But it's not that it's not important. It's that there's a triage going on here. And, so it's really interesting that you have perspectives from both sides and how much you've grown. And you also said that you could have had a much bigger bag if you just withstood the storm.
Yeah, I know. I don't it's not this huge regret in life. I actually am really grateful of all the things and all the industries that I've learned from. I later in years ended up I should say later in years. I mean, this is only within the last 3 years. I started working with an executive leadership coach, and she is really awesome. Well, not just a coach, also my coach and also therapy. Okay.
As a therapist, we asked if we could tip.
Val Tate, you guys,
Wow.
she's awesome. She's in San Francisco. I've been seeing her for years. Hot tip. Hot tip. But that is the things that I've learned between going through therapy. So it's and also executive leadership coach. So listen, at the end of the day, we can talk about all the business and we can do all these things, right? But again, goes back to relationships. How do you water your own grass in your personal and your business relationships, right? And these are the things that I've learned from both of like these coaches that I've had in my life, right? Like I wrote this trend of like, oh, I can do better. There's 1,000 startups. I can go and do something else. But why constantly keep going to like more and more startups when you just can water your own grass, right? And I mean, I know I'm like rambling, but like the point of talking about all of this is like I'm very grateful for all of those moments. But had I not stuck out the storm, just don't think I would have learned half of the shit that I know today. Like I started the podcast talking about success and support and relationship building, all these things. That's because I like weather the storm with a couple more startups instead of just like going on to the next thing. And the last point that I want to make, and I really would love to get into this, is there's a really good article that my coach actually shared with me. I can't remember the name of it, but it's basically about like what to do when your business is scaling and like how you deal with the emotions of like people internally. Because like when you're scaling, like I said, I was employee 4 at Feastables. Okay. Employee 4 at Feastables versus like the 50 plus people. Like I've lost count at this point. Like the 50 plus point is like 2 different scenarios, right? But had I had this continuous mentality of like, I'm leaving, right? I would have never learned how to take a brand from D2C to omni-channel, like, and I know that's like one thing, but my point is like the experience between employee under 10 and the experience of employees like 20 and up are so different. And the emotions are so different. And as leaders, it's also up to us to it's not that you have to like coddle all of us, but it's also up to us to like build a type of culture and environment where you build a thing and you have the Lego tower, but it's time to pass on the Lego tower so you can go build another Lego tower.
Oh my God, you just brought up Legos. I love you because I collect Harry Potter Lego sets.
Oh my God, you need to meet my best friend because he does.
I'm sure we could compete on who had more Lego sets, but you're 100% right. I love listening to you talk about this selfishly because I was on the other side of the coin. You left easily. I stayed too easily. So for me, my thing is like loyalty, right? Whatever loyalty is. I think that's like such a bad thing to have sometimes and such a good thing to have sometimes. Like you don't need to be loyal to anybody. You have to just weather out storms and do things that are good for you and are beneficial to the mass. But I won't get too into that. But I went to different companies and I would stay there for such long periods of time when I knew it was my time to phase out. I knew it was the time, but I was like, no, I really want to see them do well. I'm their friend. Friend, bitch, you pay me, right? If we are friends outside of it, awesome. But now in the position that I am and rose to, be a director, and then I got to see it through those lenses, and then I got to see it from the executive level, and then, now CEO. My lenses are very different, and you start to also care about people more. I was far more callous when I was making like no money and I was, just an employee to now being where I am because again, you have to manage people. But to see your mentality of hopping and now having, I wouldn't say regret, like you said, you have reflection and you think things that you would do differently moving forward. And now I'm looking at it from your side and going, oh, that's what happened to that person that left. And then from the other side for perspective for you, it's like, I should have left sooner. I should have done things that maybe would have benefited me more long term because I could have been so much farther. But you know what? We live and we grow.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. And I think you hit a really good point. Like, again, like there's no regret. There's no regret. There's more reflection. But like, I'm not going to say my age, but I did mention that. It's 24. 24. Thank you. But, I'm a late bloomer in like the grand scheme of things, right? Like I was a girl who, yes, I went to art school, but I paid for art school out of my pocket. So it took me a really long time to graduate from art school, which probably should use that fucking degree, but whatever. But like my point is though, is like, I've been working and I've been doing for so long in my like life now, right? Like I'm not going to say numbers, but that I think I was constantly like just chasing stuff, like constantly chasing this dream. And if you just sit still, you're going to learn so much shit. So like I talked about this. I actually just dropped a new newsletter and the part of the introduction to the newsletter was like, who is Jess? And I was like, I have, 15 plus years and this and that, but I've worked a lot of weird, messy jobs and I've learned a lot of different things that has, put me in this intersection of like creative out of the box thinking. Like some of the things and I don't know, this isn't like a high buzz moment, but I'm just saying like, my point of bringing this up is that because I gave it my all with so many companies prior to Startup World, I've learned so many different business tactics from it. I've learned so many different things from like going to art school and that creative thinking, right? Like, and then when I got into Startup World, I was like always chasing that Silicon Valley dream. And lastly, though, really funny story. So I tell you this story about like bouncing around. I actually did have an opportunity to go back to that previous job before the startup world. And like this person, I don't want to name names, but like this person offered me like a very consistent salary. It would have to be chasing all these things. Like it was going to be more than I was even making at this one startup. But for some reason, my gut, I was like, no, don't do that. Like, don't go back into this like previous life because you're just chasing a dollar amount. You're not chasing the learning. Even then, like I had that moment. And had I left that moment, had I like left that job, I don't think I would be anywhere where I am today, which is interesting because last point, when I declined it, I said to them, I was like, yeah, I'm going to decline this because I actually really want to chase customer experience as my career. And they were like, what is that? And I had to go and explain it. And now look, it's like where I am today,
Amazing. There's so many, like, I love this podcast because you just like talk, right? And all these beautiful nuggets just come out of everyone's mouth because there's no real structure. Maybe it's to our detriment, but I don't even care. And I love storytelling because everybody's stories are so different. Like you said some awesome things of like, you had an opportunity to go back, right? And you had a gut feeling, and it goes back to gut feeling. Like you hold on to it because it will drive you in the right direction. And it reminded me of this one story, which I know you'll love. I was working at this very, very known company and I was tired and I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I quit. I didn't have a backup plan. I put my 2 weeks in. The CEO was like, are you sure? And I was like, yes, I'm sure. So then the head of HR, and mind you, the company that I was at had multiple companies. And I can't name this because it's pretty dicey and spicy. Just a little warning. So I left and they had offered me a position at every single one of the partnering brands. And it was kind of a huge moment of flattery because I was like, oh, when I was getting paid like quite a bit more if I were to go to any of these positions. But I really sat down and I was thinking to myself, like, do I want this? Like, this is a really big brand, like the biggest brand under the umbrella. I was under one of the smaller brands at the time. And the bigger brand was like, yeah, we want to work with you. So I was thinking about it and I was like, do you really want to do this? I don't know, but I don't want to go back to this environment. Okay. So I made the decision, no. And mind you, I didn't have a backup plan. I was just doing something with my ex-partner my now ex-partner, and we were just going to go for it. Thank God I didn't because of that gut feeling that you were talking about. 6 months later, I get a text message at like 2, 3 in the morning from this guy. And this guy was going to be the one that I would work directly with in that position that was offered me. And he was hitting on me and trying to sext me while he was laying down with his fiance. And I remember thinking to myself going, thank God I didn't take that job. Because what if I had taken that job and now I put myself in a position where I have to weasel my way out? Because just a little warning to everybody, if you're a man in the space, if you're a woman in the space, I haven't heard many conversations about men being in this weird position, and I would love to hear more of it because it's perspective. But from my perspective, that was really awkward is you can't just say fuck you and leave. Like there are repercussions across the board. Then you have to prove that this person did it. Then you have to prove that this person get hacked. You have to prove, like all this bullshit. I would have had to maneuver that and been miserable. But instead I trusted my gut and look, like we all made it. We're all still alive. So it was just funny.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes like your gut just like, this isn't as serious, but had I gone back, like I probably would be out of a job because of like COVID and travel and like all that stuff for like 3 years, right? Or however long. I feel like it really was just yesterday, but um, but yeah, listen, man, I hear you. Like sometimes you just gotta like trust your gut and you just have to go with it. But also, what's what's the intersection of gut and intuition versus you getting out of your own way,
Yeah. Huge.
you
Huge.
know? Because like what we're talking about right now is like intuition and gut and like, okay, like I haven't done those things, right? But then the story that I was telling you is like me chasing this other grass essentially, right? And granted, there was a lot of gut feelings in that, but that was me getting in the way of myself, you
Oh, so
know?
huge. I mean, we've talked about this on other episodes. I didn't want to bring it up too many times in this season, but like, there are a lot of kids that will come to me and want a position. Not so much now because of AdBeacon, but when I was a director of paid social, and when I was director of paid social, you get these kids that come straight out, if not even college, they don't go to college, and they demand this very high salary. And you have to sit there and go, what's the experience to reflect the salary? Like Moseni said, right? Like, what is your multiple? And they can't give you that multiple. And this specific person who I'm very good friends with now, and he's at a very good position and a great media buying team now. So we're all good. But, I gave him a full-fledged plan of how to hit his salary goal. But you
Mhm.
had to earn it and you had to reflect metrics wise. And his old company gave him the salary, like offered to take him back at the salary in which I was telling him he had to earn.
Mhm.
And that's when it's the Jess moment, right? That you're saying watering your own grass is, do you want to stick it out and see the beautiful reward that is sticking it out and working hard? Or do you want to take the shiny object and take the other grass is greener? And unfortunately, he took the grass is greener route, called me 6 months later and told me he made a huge mistake. And the reason why is I told him, I was like, if you're just going after money,
Mhm.
what's going to happen is that cup is going to run very dry and nothing's going to fill it. And what you really need right now is mentorship and his stage in life. So I agree with everything that you said. It's also like, don't get in your own way and don't get like shiny object syndrome is huge.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I watch a lot of people who are like entering the space being like, oh, I want to go work at this startup or I want to do these things. Right. And like, I'm going to be real with you. Somebody said this to me like recently. They said only like 1 in 5 startups really hit. So
100%. 100%.
yeah.
I feel like what they do is they have this like huge insurgence of funding, right? So they get all this money and then they get kids that are willing to like work their ass off. And maybe they'll give them like a salary that these kids never thought in a million years they could get, right? So
Mhm.
then they get them and then they work them to the bone and they squeeze every ounce of living anything out of them to the point where when they leave, they're just like this broken vessel.
Yeah.
And then they go under.
I know. I mean, yeah, because you took these people that like did all the work for you, and then, and then you burn them out, right? And then you wave money in front of them, but like that's the thing is like it's not all about money. Like abundance doesn't come from money in your bank account. Money can flow in, flow out just as easily, right? And that's like that actually is the point of like one of the things that I really try to teach like the people that I'm mentoring now because a lot of people that are coming in under me are a lot younger. They're like new to like the startup space. They don't really understand equity. They don't really understand like salaries and all of these things, right? And, one of the biggest things is like, it's not just about like chasing that dollar figure. What it is, what can you learn from the people in the company in who your boss is? Like, how can you utilize like these opportunities to like get mentorship, go and do other things? I mean, that's like the one thing, like even today, like, yes, I'm out and I'm doing the things and I have the newsletter and I have the podcast and I have the speaking engagements, all these things, right? And it's not about clout chasing, right? The whole reason that I actually am doing these things is because I really want to like help other people learn from like one, my mistakes, but also educate people in the space about whatever it is, like customer experience, retention, life cycle, a lot of leadership things. And that's what I really have been trying to like push my teams and like my team, my current team at my full-time job, as well as the teams that are under me for my fractional role, is I'm like, read that book. You're like, we're going to work together and you are going to learn some shit here. Right. Um, my point is though, it's not always about money. Abundance flows in various different forms. And that could be in the form of knowledge. That could be in the form of skill building, whatever it is.
Yeah. Value and abundance key. Like, what is your definition of value and abundance? And then identify with what aligns. Like, I teach at Cal Lutheran University, and the first day I always sit down with the students and I go, what are your core values? And like, I only say and ask this question because I never got asked this question when I was in college. And then I go, okay, based off these core values today, I don't know if they'll change by the end of the semester, but keep those in mind with all the decisions you make, which includes your first job at college. Whoever you're going to work for, money's great, but do they align with your core values? Because if they do, like mentorship from Jess, if the things that you're trying to go after align with what Jess's are, then you're going to get so much more reward. She's going to pour into you. She's going to mentor you because she genuinely just wants you to learn because she's gone through it. But then if you align with somebody who's all about money and maybe you're not about money, you're about people and work-life balance, like you're screwed because you didn't align with that. You just went after something that was completely a distraction. So I love what you said there, Jess. And I think it was a perfect segue because I want to get spicy now. That we got mushy gushy, I want to get spicy dicey.
Literally your auntie. Not my auntie, but like I'm the sister. I'm like, let's hug.
Yes. Also, what's really funny right now for people who are watching the video podcast is, what is your shirt? Because I'm wearing a Nirvana shirt today. And it says
in the wall.
I said that it was like Turks and Caicos, but like electricity.
No, it's a sandwich shop in New Orleans. So fun fact, I'm from Louisiana. So yeah, a lot of people don't know that.
I don't know if you know this, but like I went to Monroe years ago because I'm friends with that family that everyone knows in Monroe.
Interesting.
Yeah. We'll talk another time.
Yeah, we'll talk offline. But
yeah,
I grew up in Lafayette, Louisiana.
We name drop unless you Google. Okay, guys.
Anyway.
We're going straight into hot takes, and I want us to get, like I said, spicy. So I want to know, what is your current hot take, Jess, in the D2C space or just in general in the life?
God, not everybody's your friend. Personal and business is business. I think that I've seen, this is a really hot take, but really this is a hot take because I was like literally like in our conversation, I was like thinking about this. You told a story and it just kind of reminded me of it. I think that, I wouldn't say there's people out there, but I will say like, be very careful with your boundaries and align yourself with a community that is like uplifting and that wants to like see you win. And then like, and going back to the abundance thing, right? Not only align yourself with people who see you win or want you to win and like you're winning, you're all this and the other thing. But going back to the abundance thing about if you're always chasing people who are chasing money and not for actually putting out a dope product, actually taking care of their customer, like just align with people that are within your values.
Ooh. See, like she started with a hot take and then she padded it with some nice shit. I'll counter that hot take with, it's okay to have friends too.
Yeah.
Right. I think often we go, not everyone's your friend. Well, yeah, 100%. Right. Like business is business. There's so many people in the space that I love to death from afar. And like, if you ever need anything, hit me up. I got you. But at the same time, like I probably wouldn't hang out with you just because we get along intellectually in this D2C shit, but maybe not personally. You don't know what I do in my like free time. You don't know what I do in my backyard and just chill at night and like look at the stars and do woo-woo stuff with Jess, like you don't know any of that. So, but I also want to take the hardened exterior out, the people that are all about the money, the people that are all about all these things. Like it's also okay to open your heart and be friends with these people.
Yeah.
So, okay. Any other hot takes? I want them to Spicy Jess.
No, I know that was spicy and it was really sandwiched, but I just want to be like clear and then it's not about just being nice. It's just, and I'm not saying anybody wrong between you, right? I'm just seeing a lot of clout chasing out there. And I'm like, man, let's, maybe just surround ourselves with a community that want to win and like, why we always got to be negative.
I feel that like I have a headache, like everyone's got an issue with somebody. Everyone's got like something's happening. And I always go and sit there and go, come on, guys. Like we got fucking shit to do today. Like I got things I need to handle. Like you guys are the mega in the space. All of us are like known people in the space. Right now, I wouldn't say we're the best of the best, but like we're maybe a little bit more vocal out there.
Yeah.
So like, can we all vocally get along? Just for the sake of my sanity, because I don't need to go on to Twitter or Facebook, Instagram, all this and see two mega people just fighting. And I'm going, point of this, like, this is stupid. It's like high school.
But I think it's also like you're here today to like, so like, the other thing too, going back to like actually like seeing your people when actually coming into like, okay, it's okay to admit mistakes. It's okay to like talk about them, build in the open, like all these things, right? And just think about it. Like we're here today and like we might be out there like doing our newsy, our podcast, this, that, and the other thing. But what is the next generation of people that are going to come in and replace us in like 5 to 10 years, right?
I love that.
I mean, truly, like those people that are going to replace us, I guarantee you, are the kids that I'm mentoring. I shouldn't say kids; they're not kids; they're all adults. But they are the people that I'm mentoring. They are the people that I'm uplifting and like making sure that they're learning from mistakes and also allowing them to make mistakes too, and be like, let's learn let's learn a thing.
I heard on the Oopsie podcast, I heard you say something along the lines of like somebody on their exit interview or came back to you said, thank you for allowing me to learn from those mistakes and make those mistakes. And that was actually a really great moment for me to learn from you because I often don't let people do that. I like to like fix it on the back end just in case they do screw up. And then that doesn't help anybody. And, to your point, you let them make those mistakes and it's kind of like a nice parenting tip too to the two people who aren't parents. But
I know I like literally don't want to be a parent ever. I'm like, no, I'm good.
I will compliment both you and Zoe because what's so interesting too is there's this concept of soft metrics and hard metrics in our space, right? There's like organic social, they always call them soft metrics. And then for paid social, they call them hard metrics because they want to say the hard metrics reflect that of conversions and or that of revenue. And then soft metrics or vanity metrics, right? Like followers or impressions, things like that, that are just like clout chasing. And I hope you don't take offense to this, but I think in the D2C space, often CX is considered a soft metric and or a skill, and then hard skills or anything that bring in revenue. And to watch how successful Oopsie podcast is and to watch how incredibly talented both you and Zoe are in fostering those conversations and how many of these big juggernaut guys are just like foaming at the mouth to the next episode from you guys just shows you that they're not soft skills and they're not soft metrics because you just reverse engineered it and said, hey, see, we took care of you guys on this podcast. And that's why you're fucking listening. So I really appreciate that.
Well, I appreciate it. I think you're absolutely correct, though. It is like soft skills and you don't offend me on it. Like, and to be honest with you, I don't think it's ever going to change. Like, I think that's also why, like, I am not just doing CX. Like, I do all these other things because I'm out here also trying to learn, like, be the better person than I was yesterday. Right. So it's like, I'm doing retention marketing, lifecycle marketing, CRO stuff, e-com growth, like all these other things. Like these are all the skill sets that I actually do within like my fractional consulting, not just the CX stuff. Right. But my point is though, is like, but your CX people are going to be the people that are going to like eat all of those skills up. They're going to be like, oh, how do I do all of these things? And going back again to like mentorship and leadership, but like I have people on my team who, they'll take tickets. Yeah, they'll respond to things on social or do the community management or, we have a digital experience thing. But I also give every one of the people on my team a piece of the CX pie. And what I mean by that is like, I'm giving them, like, for instance, I have somebody who's never used Klaviyo a day in their life. They're not necessarily a marketer, but they figured out how to build marketing campaigns in Klaviyo, right? And like, that's a soft skill that they can like utilize to like excel them and get them into like a different position in like their career, right? So my point is, I guess my hot take is this, like, don't pound out every CX professional. We ain't just support, okay? It's also not even just about relationship building. Your CX people are so hungry to want to learn something. Teach them, actually give them the opportunity to learn. Yes, you can be like Phoenix, because I'm not gonna lie, sometimes I'm in the back like QAing, like, what is going on? And like, I won't let them fall flat on their face. I will allow some errors, because you have to learn. But I think there's nothing wrong with, again, passing off your Lego tower for somebody else to build that Lego tower even better.
Yeah. Sometimes you have to crash the Lego tower on purpose just to watch to see how they rebuild it.
Yeah.
And sometimes what they rebuild is absolutely insane. And, I'll end it on this note because I really loved everything that you said. It like warmed my heart. I don't know if you know this, Jess, but about 4 years, 3.5 years, 4 years ago, about 4.5 years ago, I'd never heard of paid social. I didn't know anything about this. I learned all of it. And to your point about like the get people in CX, like they're just hungry. Like I was hungry. Anyone can do this. You just never know where another unlock of a brain will occur. And I'm blessed to be able to have these conversations with you. I'm blessed to be in the same spaces with the people that we're in to foster these conversations, because this is what needs to happen. And soft skills, hard skills, they're still skills. And they're not soft and hard skills, because if you didn't have CX, like I said, the longevity of your brand is going to suffer. And I've seen this time and time again. So I'm blessed to have you on this podcast to say this. And I think people need to continue with your blessings with this knowledge. Oh, bless everybody.
It lets to be stressed. Okay.
Where can people find you, Jess? Like where should they follow you?
Yes. You can find me at jesscervellon.com. I just launched my first newsletter where your girl over here is going to be talking about all these leadership things, okay? Talking about some Lego towers. And then lastly, you can also find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active in those spaces.
Amazing. Follow her. We're going to have all of your links on our episode, and then everyone will be able to follow you there. But I didn't really understand this whole like newsletter thing. Everyone's dropping them, and now I'm realizing like the power of it. I might just like start my own newsletter and just talk about like dumb shit, like nothing D2C, like maybe the headlines and the CTAs are like D2C, but you open it up and it's like a how to build a Harry Potter Phoenix. Lego.
My newsletter is called Sunday Postcards, Notes from an Empath Leader, to like be able to like talk about anything. And I get it, like not everybody wants the warm hug, but listen, I'm going to teach you some things on how to take care of your people and build culture so your startup can actually thrive.
No one wants the warm hug until they're in the middle of it and they're like, wow, this feels nice. So
but I'm like a sneak attack hugger because I don't actually want you to touch me. I'm going to be honest with you. Secretly, I'm an introvert.
It's like, I want you to know that I'm touching you, but I'm not physically touching you. Also, so creepy. What do you know that I'm touching your brain, right?
Also, we'll talk about some HR compliance things in my newsletter.
Nah, we're too small for HR. Like, I'm good. Nobody likes HR. Actually, I just called my old HR director. I was like, hey, how are you? And I'm like thinking to myself, like, why are we friends? But anyway,
always be friends with fucking HR. Straight up.
Always be friends with people and make sure you never end a relationship on a poor note, regardless of how terrible they are. Even though when I was on the podcast, Loopsy podcast, I just shit on an old agency, but it's fine. I so appreciate you being here, Jess, and I can't wait for this episode to come out so people can really just be enriched. So thank you.
Thank you for having me. I think you're a bad bitch, so
thank you.
Mic drop.
Another bad bitch. Let's go. Bye.